Thank you to the organizers for having me give a little talk on our new PhD program at Imperial that we're building over the next years, which is supposed to bridge the missing gaps in skills and technologies that prevent us from scaling industrial biotechnology. So I'm a relatively recent hired associate professor at the bioengineering department at Imperial College, and this program has been funded by the BBSRC in the context of this Industrial Doctoral Training Landscape Awards. So let me see, this moves here. So, sorry, I just need to move this guy away. So the way we like to think about kind of sustainable bioproduction, at least with my colleagues here at Imperial, is, how can we turn different waste streams into value using cell factories? So what I mean by cell factories is basically genetically modified microorganisms that can be bacteria or yeast or fungi that we somehow trained to, use waste streams, such as those from agriculture, like wheat bran, for example, or organic waste, that would be your regular banana peel, or even gaseous wastes, like, for example, carbon dioxide, to convert them into value-added products that we usually, at the moment, produce from petrochemicals, like fuels, materials, chemicals, and food, or biocore, for example. So this program, you're going to see in a second, is also associated with this new Imperial Base Center for Sustainable Protein. So a lot of these processes that we're looking at turn waste streams into food protein as kind of a new sustainable way to at least replace some of the foods we're currently producing with agriculture. And I think we became like reasonably good in doing that at, let's say, 1 to 10 liter scale in our academic labs. And the real question is, and I think this is, of course, what this whole workshop is about, how do we do that at scale that industry uses, like 1,000 liters or more? And of course, industry can already do that. But the question is really, how do we go through this process fast and in a predictable way, such that we don't, lose time and money? And so what we did, we have a lot of industry connections, and we were sitting down and really thinking that a program would need to, be built from academia and industry together, because industry, of course, has the large scale equipment and the knowledge how to operate it. So this is something we just can't train our students in at academia. They also know about the real world challenges. So they have the processes, they know which products will be sold later on, and they also have the sector know-how. So industry somehow needs to be involved in, training students in this kind of like systems thinking, how we can do scale up. And in academia, of course, we do have the privilege to, still have time and money to perform cutting edge research, because I think many of these challenges that we're facing are still very much scientific problems. So typical challenges we have in these type of bioprocesses are, for example, why are cells becoming sick when we start scaling? So sometimes cells perform very well in production in 10 liter scale, but then when we scale up, they suddenly start lysing, they start producing much less. Often this is related to oxygenation, so they have less oxygen, but sometimes it's just steering forces. So there's a lot of kind of like scientific questions we still have to answer. So this is where academia needs to come into place. And we also, of course, need technological innovations. So maybe we need new reactors, we need maybe new downscale models that allow us to better predict how a scale process will look like. We maybe need digital twins. So there's a lot, I think, that can still be delivered by academia. So we felt like a PhD program that really trains, skills and technologies to scale needs to be implemented by industry and academia together. So eventually we formulated such a program, and we were lucky to get it funded. We wanted to have it called Scale Industrial Biotechnology, and then we had to fill it with, something that would fill that acronym. So it's now called the Sustainable Center for II Leveraged Efficiency in Industrial Biotechnology. And it's a program that is supported by 2 companies, BASF, which is a big chemical industry from Germany. They are now, since 10, 20 years transitioning into biotechnology, so replacing some of their chemical processes by biotechnological ones, and Bühler, which is a Swiss equipment provider. So they actually build fermenters. Both of them, of course, also have plants and operations in the UK. And we have 3 academic institutions involved. Imperial, I think we're good at really the cell engineering. We have Aberystwyth, they have expertise in feedstock sourcing, and they know about the waste streams, and they also know about downstream applications. And we have UCL, which already has good facilities actually in scaling a little further than the lab scale to pilot scale, and also having that kind of like digitalized. And our goal is to also train these students in different careers. So not only thinking about, how can these become the next academic leaders, but also really training them for different sectors like research and development in academia or industry, but also policy and regulation, entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth. And we have a lot of additional partners involved that can provide internships and just sector knowledge to these students. So in total, it's a rather small program, so we can recruit 18 students that have been funded by the BBSRC, but the Bezos Center is co-funding additional studentships. And just to zoom out a bit, kind of like what we're envisioning, we really want to think about this biomanufacturing workflow end to end, which really goes not only kind of like thinking about how a single bioprocess can be scaled in volume, but also how everything that feeds into this bioprocess and everything that kind of like goes out of this bioprocess has to be scaled in analogy to make the whole kind of like end-to-end process happen. So we really need to have students involved in projects that think about feedstocks. So how can those be prepared at scale? And feedstock, again, we think about waste streams. How can the bioreactors develop that scale? How can we engineer cell factories that are kind of a priori already engineered to maybe perform at scale? And how can we do the downstream processing in a similar way? So there's a lot of kind of components that need to come together. So this is why we thought also cohort training might be good, because not every student, of course, has to address an individual challenge, but hopefully when they come together, they can discuss a bit more like the systems thinking behind it. So I think we kind of divided this challenge into 4 innovation, actually 5 innovation schemes: yield, scale, downstream, and data automation, and eventually integration. So we also, of course, want to have a lot of data and automation involved, where we build predictive models, maybe digital twins that go hand in hand with like data production on these processes. We create, as mentioned, we want to train for diverse careers. All the projects will be co-created with industry. Maybe in terms of timing, so we already started recruiting. We just closed the first round of applications. We're now matching the students with projects, but there's another round of applications likely to be opened a little bit later. So if anyone is interested, please drop me an email to see if you can still apply. But there is consecutive funding, so we're going to recruit again for 2027 and for 2028. And I think that's what I wanted to share. Maybe also good to know, students will be hosted at all 3 different academic institutions, so either at UCL, at Imperial, or Aberystwyth University, depending on where the supervisor is located.